So Tom Mower Sr., are you there, and are you prepared to talk about what the world wants to hear about tonight? Tom Mower Sr., it's all up to you.
Well, thanks, Aaron, and I'm glad you're out there because I've seen you in your spandex. It's quite revolting. So anyway,
I'm coming to your office right now.
My office is locked, so stay out. Anyway,
Tom Sr.,
folks, it's great to be here and to talk to you. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about tonight, which I just found out what we're going to talk about. But the one thing about it is I am prepared because unlike presidents or founders of other companies, they know little or nothing about the products that they're selling. And in reality, I talked to the president of one of the really big companies that sells tea tree oil. And he called me up, and he was pretty upset with me here a few years ago because our distributors were out saying about all the harmful ingredients that were in products. And, of course, his products had a lot of them in. And some of his distributors were having a tough time about it, especially down in Australia, trying to make headway in Australia, and they just couldn't do it because the distributor force was so strong. So he was threatening lawsuits and things like that. And I called him, and he wanted to call me up or he was going to sue. And so I called him up and talked to him. And I talked to him about what these things were. And I told him, and I said, let's talk about the ingredients. And we talked about some of the ingredients. I said, you know what this is? No. Well, this is one of the most serious ones. I explained that. Go to another, tell him about that one. Look what this one does. And I was just telling him just like I'm talking right now. And we got to the end of it. He says, well, what can you do about it? I said, remove them. There's alternatives. I said, it's really simple, and all the science is there to do it. So he hung up. And that was the end of it. I mean, didn't hang up on me, thanked me. But he was so aghast, and here he has the company's bigger than $500 million a year. And he was so surprised at all these things. And you know what? I wasn't, because these heads of these companies, they don't know what they're doing with these products. And there's somebody here in Utah now that was over in Europe where the Vikings were, and they found a berry that the Vikings ate. And it made the Vikings so strong, and that's why they conquered all of northern Europe. That's the story, and now they're making an MLM on it. It's the latest wonder berry. But in reality, that leads us up to really what we've got with the triangle of life, which I'll start on first. If there was a magic bullet that did everything, it's flim-flam and scam. There isn't. I mean, are your toenails the same as tissue that's made in your brain, and do they function the same way? You have to clip your brain or clip your toenails? I mean, they're so different, and hair, and stomach, and liver, and skin, and all of those things. Your eyes are also different, and they all have different needs and requirements in order to make them function the way they should. Now, to start with, let's understand one thing. It has to do with aging. And we're all aging. After about 25, you actually grow bigger, younger, stronger up to about 25. You can look at younger in a state one way or another. I just think you're growing better up to 25. And once you've hit 25, you hit your peak, and girls it's about 23. And then you start to decline, and you start to age. First it's slow, and then it picks up speed because decay upon decay it speeds up the aging process. And so when you're about 50 years old, your rate of aging has about doubled. And so you live a day, you're about 2 days older. By the time you're 75, you age about 3 days biologically for every day that you live. And aging is not a disease. In fact, the FDA won't allow you to say that it is a disease, that if somebody, or they won't even allow people to be on their death certificates to say they died of old age, because everyone dies of some sort of a condition. It might be brought about that you've lived a long time, but it's really becomes because you've had a cumulative degenerative decay, and your regeneration hasn't been able to keep up with your degeneration. So you're losing cells faster than you replace them. And those that you have are getting badly damaged because the systems that were healthy are now in decline, degenerating, decaying, and so you are aging, and aging faster, faster, faster. So about 75 years of age, the average person dies. Some places a little older in the 80s, some places as low as like in Africa or in men in the former Soviet Union, they live about 58 years. That's their average. So it has to do with a number of conditions. Genetics is one. The environment is the second one that you're in, and then you have all the other natural factors that go on in life. So here you have companies coming along, and they'll bring out something like, let's look at Noni. Noni at one time was a big company, almost a billion-dollar company, and now they're still selling products around, and they're a fairly reasonable company. But, if I don't make a Noni product, and yet we could make one, and we even have some companies that might want us to make a product for them, and if they did, we would do that because we do a lot of custom manufacturing. But why wouldn't I really make a Noni product when it grew to be $1 billion product from another company? Well, it's really easy to tell you why. It's because Noni really isn't worth selling. Because what it does, in my opinion, is it has little or no effect. And so if you go into a site like PubMed.com, that's a site from the National Institute of Health. It's from the U.S. National Library of Medicine. And so this is a government site. So if you went in there and you put in something, let's say Tahitian Noni, because that's the name that companies really got started with. And if you put that site in and you hit the search engine, and I just did it just as we're talking right now, up came 25 studies. Now, that's all the studies that have been done on Tahitian Noni. And probably a lot of you don't know that, but research money is really difficult to get, especially in the economy right now. And so if something does not really look like it has merit to discover something that's worthwhile, that needs a lot of money to be spent to research it, they don't research it. Well, it's 25 studies, and how long has it been around? And some of these are just talking about what's in it and about the safety of it, and not even the performance of it. So you have a few studies in there that are there. But now if you go to a product like Fucoidan, and I'll just type the chemical name of Fucoidan in. And so if you put Fucoidan in, boy, a minute before you get even the search engine hit, there's all kinds of categories coming down in it. And I just look at them right now because that's the basic product we started with in the Triangle of Life. There's Fucoidan cancer, diabetes, and cancer, and arthritis, and blood pressure, inflammation, thyroid, kidney, immune, breast, liver, colon, brain, diabetes, lung, blood, HIV, and that's where it ends on the chart there, and breast cancer. All of those. So that's all the subcategories, because Fucoidan does so many remarkable things to so many different problems that we have. When I started and I found Fucoidan, I saw what a remarkable product it was. We had somewhere around 50 or 60 studies, and this is in 2006 or 7 when we were first getting ready to start the company. So now I just clicked on it, and it's gone from 50 or 60 studies from, say, 2006 or 7, and now, right now, there's 1,067 studies on Fucoidan. Well, during that period of time, during the time we had this great recession, there's been tremendous numbers of studies that have been done on Fucoidan because it's worth spending the money on. And you just heard all of the subcategories in it. It's probably the single greatest overall product in the world that does more for more things to the human body than any other product. I know nothing that will come close to Fucoidan. And the Chinese, they called it virgin mother's milk. They knew it came from seaweed, and they would extract it and concentrate it because they knew that it would bring a baby's system up like that of breast milk during the first 3 or 4 days. And so they called it virgin mother's milk. Immune system jumped up. All of the systems responded. And here's why. Fucoidan is a master cell signaler. In other words, it can contact cells and pass signals onto them. Most products don't. Most products will have some effect with a gene or something like this, but this is a cell signaler. And I saw a company that sells a product that's an aloe, and they talk about it, and they say, well, it signals cells. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's low-energy cell signaling, and it does it to about 8 systems with it. And they're touting the company, and they say, we've got some patents on it Well, patents don't mean effectiveness. Patent means it's just patented for that function. But here they got this aloe product that's patented, and studies show it does signal about 8 different systems. But with Fucoidan, it signals about 24 systems, and it's enormously powerful. And I was just down at, a couple of months ago, down to Kagoshima in Japan, and they have a big institute there. Fucoidan's very famous in Japan because they know how powerful it is, and lots of people, most of the common people know what Fucoidan is, but it's very, very expensive. And I had the chief scientific officer, and he's a medical doctor too, and he came down to a meeting and wanted to meet with, and he says, I run the university and the research center up here, and he said, we've been testing Fucoidan. They're the premier testing in Japan, and Fucoidan is sold, and you can buy it off the shelf there, but it's sold in drug as a drug, a pharmacy, pharmaceutical, or you can buy it over the counter because it's so safe. And he said, we've been studying it, and we looked at your Fucoidan versus the Fucoidan that we're using, and yours is much more powerful than ours is. And he said, yours is selling for, and it's selling in Japan for about $60. And he says, that which we've made here at the university, and they're selling it out through the medical establishment, he says sells for $800 for a month's supply. And yet yours is working better than ours is. So we've been testing it. He said, how did you do it? And I said, well, I just read the science, and I knew what Fucoidan could do. And it's like refining oil. You can have an oil that's a crude oil, or you can have one that's a very fine oil. And maybe a very fine oil might be for like a sewing machine. And there's oil for perhaps for bearings on some sort of machinery, or under heavy impact, or a car engine, and different grades of oil. And I said, and that's what Fucoidan is. I have there's a lot of science in it, and I found that researchers have determined what makes Fucoidan active, and it's when the molecule combines with a sulfur molecule. It's called sulfonization. I'm not going to give you all these big names here. You don't have to keep track of these, but about 1 in 8 Fucoidan molecules, and they're extracted from a seaweed. And there's certain types that are very rich in them, but about 1 in 8 has got a sulfur bond to it, and that's the active one. And so 7 of 8 are inactive. And so what I did was I patented and designed a system to where we can sulfonate, we think, all 8 of the Fucoidan molecules. So what have we taken with Fucoidan? If you take a certain volume of it, it has a certain activity. But when you sulfonate 8 of them, you have 8 times that activity. So that makes it much more powerful to start with. And so there we outdid what he was doing. But the other thing is Fucoidan comes from brown seaweeds found in different places in the world, and they happen to be doing theirs off kombu, which is a seaweed that grows off Okinawa in Japan. And it has one variety of Fucoidan, just like there's apples, there's Yellow Delicious and Red Delicious and Jonathan and Fuji and Macintosh. There's varieties of types of seaweed, too, brown seaweed that contain Fucoidan. Kombu is one, and it's fairly rich with a Fucoidan molecule called Fucoidan U. And so that's what they're using. But down in Tonga, it's the only place in the world, they found that the seaweed down there, where kombu is about 3% active, or it has 3% Fucoidan in it, the seaweed down in Tonga is somewhere around 18-20% active for Fucoidan content. And then it has not just the U, it also has a G and an F Fucoidan with it. And so you've got 3 varieties. The 3 varieties are all found in one. And it's 8 times more concentrated than the seaweed found in Okinawa. And then we sulfonate it. So what's 8 times 8? I mean, that's what you've got here. You've got maybe 60 sometimes more powerful molecule in the same concentration or formula. So that's what we've done. Now, that gives you more science than you really need to sell, but this is Fucoidan done right. And there's a couple of companies out selling some Fucoidan, but there's such a small amount in it. We looked at them. It's basically just water with a little Fucoidan in it. They make the claims, and a couple of them are using actually the Tongan, but they use a little of it. We call it feather dusting, just a small amount, 1% or so in it. where we reach supersaturation. With ours, we're running up about close to 35% of this concentrate in solution, and that's very high. And so as a consequence, we have the product that's probably the most diverse in the world for signaling sales and has so many other properties with it. Legally, I can't tell you all of the things that it does, but you under DSHEA, the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act, you can go and you can look on the charts, and then you can see, and you just start reading them, and all of the things that it does, and of course it's a little technical, but you can read through it, and you'll see it does about anything. As far as an antioxidant goes, and it has antioxidant power. And you hear companies saying, oh, we have the most powerful antioxidant in the world. And it went from one, I remember when it started with maritime pine bark, and it was 60 times more, had more antioxidant power than vitamin C, which is the common denominator for it, or vitamin E, which is 1, vitamin C is 3. It was, and then they brought out one that was from grapeseed, and it was 180 times more powerful. And so you looked at all that, and then they say, well, then they got into the auric value. What's the auric value? People didn't really understand all that. It says free radicals, the ability of neutralize free radicals. And they say, well, it has the highest auric value. And I would say to them, in what category? And people wouldn't know what they're talking about because there's 7 real good, important categories. And an antioxidant good in one might be totally ineffective in another. And so the free radicals you don't get you. So that was one of the things said. But as far as free radical activity or neutralization, Fucoidan is far beyond anything else. You're talking about automobiles going along the highway, and there's all different models, and suddenly here goes the space shuttle up into the air. It's got what no other one has got, and that's what Fucoidan is. We don't even tout it as antioxidant. It's the most powerful antioxidant, I believe, naturally, that grows on, well, I don't think anything synthetically. I think it's the most powerful antioxidant on Earth, and we don't even talk about that. But here it has all these other properties. For the immune system, it's an immunomodulator. It modifies the immune system with it. And it's great. They did studies on, we'll just talk about ingredients on ours. For stomach ulcers, you take that and your stomach ulcers go away. Kills the bacteria that does that. Now, this is the molecule, so understand on this call, I'm not going to talk about our product. We're just talking about the individual ingredients and what it's done in the studies that have been done on it. We'll be posting some science pages pretty quick. So here's the first one of the first legs or points of the triangle of life is Fucoidan. Cell signaling. It's a master for doing that. Immune system. Your immune system on the Fucoidan molecule has been shown to increase by 400% in a day. Literally a day brings it up. Your inflammation. That's where most damage comes from diseases. This is the best immunomodulator, inflammation modulator or modifier that's found in nature. In fact, I don't think you can find anything hardly in prescription drugs that would even rival. There might be a few, but with huge side effects. This has no side effects. You can take it every single day, and it fortifies your system and your immune system and all of this and signaling cells and so many things that I daresn't even talk about. But you can look at them. You have a right to look at them. You just can't say our product does it because it hasn't been tested to do it. But we have the powerful patented system that's in it. I've got about 20 patents on Fucoidan. And I got the number of years ago, the Genius of the Year award by the Patent Lawyers Association because of the work that I had done on all of the patent that I had put on Fucoidan because it was so powerful. So that's the kind of product we have. Is it the most outstanding product in the world? Yes. Is TSX the most outstanding product in the world? Yes. Is Eternity the most outstanding product in the world? Yes, in their own categories. But that's the point. Is Spectramax the most outstanding product in the world? Yes, all in their own categories. Because like I started out in this and said, toenails and brain tissue are not the same, and everything in between it is different. And so as a consequence, a supplement can't do it all. But Fucoidan does so much to give you such a basic, strong foundation for health and vitality and regeneration and all of that. So that's one point on the triangle of life. The other one is Spectramax. Spectramax is really a cocktail that is beyond anything else. Now, you talk about antioxidants, and there's thousands of, about 2,000 groups, that means like families, of what they call free radicals, oxidizers. And they are what degenerates your body. And as a consequence, with that, you get free radicals, and they're neutralized by antioxidants, or antioxidants neutralize oxidizers. And the last result should be water. So you can take something that's very corrosive and causes cancer and all kinds of diseases, and antioxidants will neutralize the free radicals before they can do that. But with the thousands of types of free radicals there are in our environment, you have companies come along and they'll say, oh, this berry is the best for doing it. And they'll talk about, wolfberry might be one, that is out. And you see them talking about that one, or the blueberry. Or they come along and they'll talk about, there's a moki berry. See, there are all these berries. There's acai berry with this, and there's the mangosteen, the fruit from Thailand. And they say, oh, they're all the best antioxidant there is. Well, they're maybe in the category, although mangosteen, a study just was shown from the University of Adelaide down in Australia that actually apple juice has more power than mangosteen juice does. It's really a sad thing, but it's just one of these things that sounds mysterious. They build a big company, which is now pretty well collapsing, I think, and they build it on this magic mangosteen, and in reality, it's really kind of a weak product. It's just like noni. Noni is I think, is slightly less, in my opinion, than mangosteen. It's slightly better than worthless, and mangosteen is slightly better than noni. That's how I say it, in my opinion. But anyway, so you have those. But let's take a look at free radicals. If there's thousands of types, it takes a lot of different types of antioxidants because they all have different chemical structures. And so we figured out and did a lot of research on this, because I was into antioxidants long before in my previous company. We figured it'd take about 38 or so antioxidants to neutralize all the different types of free radical chemistries that are around. And so, do you want to use 5 or 1 or 2 or 3 when it takes about 38 to neutralize all the reactions? And so, what do you want? Well, you want to get them all, right? If you don't, they're going to get you. And so you can come up with something that happens. It's like cigarettes. You can smoke cigarettes, so you don't take a puff and fall over dead, or you don't take a puff and have a heart attack or cancer or anything else like that. It takes years of accumulated residual. And so it's the same way with these antioxidants. So you want something that will get them all. And I know of no other product in the world that has this broad spectrum chemistry. The other thing to remember with antioxidants, which has to do with Spectramax, is sometimes, and this is talking in chemistry, but I'll tell you simple ways you can do it. When you neutralize a free radical, it will sometimes create another free radical. You've broken down part of it, but it forms another one. And if you neutralize that one, it will break it down and form another one. And so you go free radical to free radical to free radical. And the most I know of goes down 4 different steps. And so they call it cascading, just like water cascades down the hill. So the free radicals will cascade, and one antioxidant will neutralize the original one, but it takes another one to neutralize the one that's cascaded to, and it takes another variety to neutralize the next one that's cascaded to, and it takes another type of antioxidant to neutralize the other, into where the end result is water. Who thinks of that? Nobody, except us, because I'm out for results, and I want to do it the best way, the right way. So we have 42 different types of antioxidant complexes in Spectramax. Unlike other companies that have 1, 2, 3, 4 or so, we have 42, and they're in extreme concentrations. We're using 90, 98, 99% concentrates in there in large doses so that we can get all that, because we want to follow the cascade all the way down to where the last reaction should be water. And we want to get all 2,200 different families or groups of free radicals and be able to neutralize them all. And so there's a big difference right there. You could sell that against anyone's antioxidant. And somebody says we have the highest ORIC value in the world, just say in what category. They won't even be able to answer you. They don't even know there's more categories. And then say, well, you don't. But overall, with 42, we have the most broad spectrum in the world. And if you want the highest, Fucoidan exceeds anything. And that's not even in our Spectramax. But it's the variety, the types of them, and the concentration of them that matter. So we have that. And coming with those, there's a whole variety of different types of nutrients that are in that. There are things like natural vitamins and things of this nature, and we have this in a liquid form, so it's very absorbable and gets in the system fast, because if you're in a tablet, it hangs around the stomach, a lot of it can get destroyed. So liquids go through very fast because they're very reactionary molecules. So we have that with it, and we have a lot of natural vitamins and supplements and things like this that are in it too, so it's more of a tonic from that standpoint. Then we turn around, and there's a thing called essential, and they call it essential because this means it's absolutely essential. It's just like oxygen is essential to breathe. It's essential for life. There are 74 essential trace minerals in Spectramax. And these trace minerals are there to provide, there's over 2,000 biological processes that trace minerals are essential for. And if you don't have them, those processes don't happen, and you can degenerate quite quickly because all these biological processes, either they don't occur or they wait until that mineral, that inorganic trace mineral, is present. And so we have 74 in it, so we think we provide all of those, and they're in high concentrations for trace minerals, so the body can use them. But the problem is trace minerals, while we have 74, I saw my previous company had dumped theirs down to 52, and I was so surprised, but they don't know how to keep them soluble, I believe. The last I saw, they didn't know how to do it. But anyway, but 52 is not enough. 74 is what you really need. So we have the 74, and they're in high concentration. But then because they're inorganic, they're minerals. They're not like organic things that you would eat, like proteins and carbohydrates and things like that are organic. Not like organic foods, but just organic in nature. But inorganics, they're minerals. So they're basic elements. And so the body doesn't absorb those very well. They only absorb about 3% of them. So if you take one of these, and there are some around that are mineral supplements. They can be either in a tablet or they could be in a liquid. Most of it goes right through you. And some of these network marketing companies charge a lot. So you take a drink of what becomes quite expensive urine in no uncertain terms. So if you are what you eat, that's what people say, but it's really you are what you absorb. And so it's not just what you ingest, it's what you absorb. So we found, how does nature absorb minerals like this from the soil? Because they must have them for all the biological processes they have. And where do we normally get them? We get them from food. But soils have been overfarmed, and every time the crop's taken out of the soil and harvested, it takes the inorganic trace minerals that are with it. And so over a number of years, the soils become depleted of inorganic trace minerals. And crops don't grow well because they must have them. So they fertilize them and they blow them up, kind of like steroids. But they're really hollow foods, because now all soils practically in the world are about 75% deficient in trace minerals. So if they're not in your food, then they're not in you. And since you must have them, where are you going to get them? And so Linus Pauling, who won 2 Nobel Prizes, he said, and he was a brilliant person, he lived on pretty close to 100, and he said you can trace almost every disease and affliction that people have due to a trace mineral deficiency. That was his statement. Well, he's pretty well right, but I mean there's more factors than that, of course, but trace mineral deficiency makes the body so it can't function, because you can't function. It just doesn't have what you need to make it function in those different systems. So we have concentrated it, but since it's only 3% absorbable, what makes it absorbable? Well, what makes it absorbable is how the plants extract it from the soil. And it's a thing called organic fulvic acid. And organic fulvic acid is secreted by the plants, and we'll go through the process, from the roots into the soil. That's why roots are sticky. They have this sugary syrup on it, and microbes feed on it and actually secrete organic fulvic acid into the soil. And then that attaches to nutrients and to the inorganic minerals. And it can literally take a mineral off a big rock and just to put it in solution. And then when the plants suck it up with the moisture, then it goes and it builds all the parts of the plants, the fruits, and everything else, the vegetables that's in it. So it's really absorbable into the food. So when you eat food, those inorganics are tied up with organic components, the fulvic acid. And so they carry it into the body. And folate take about a 3% inorganic material, and they make it between, we believe, about 91 to 97% absorbable. That's a huge difference. And so if you want to get it absorbed in your body, then you need something to do it with. There's a few ways of, they call it chelating, but nothing does it anywhere near like organic fulvic acid. So we harvest that. And I won't go through all the process because of time, but we harvest that and we put it with the inorganic trace minerals and they attach to them. Now the organic component is recognized by the body, takes it in, absorbs it, takes it around to the cell, and a mineral, if it was just in the blood system and up to a cell, the cell won't accept it. It's kind of like you have to have the key, and it has to be keyed property for the lock. So when you have the organic fulvic acid on it, it hits the receptor, and that signals the receptor, and it takes the mineral in with the fulvic acid. And once it's in there, it uses the mineral for its biological activity and reactions and the things that it's structuring and making. And then the organic fulvic acid is loaded. It's actually the photonic energy from the sun that's been converted to chemical energy. So the fulvic acid then is used by the cell, and cells just glow and radiate because it's turned into chemical energy. So it comes from solar energy, photons, photonic energy, to chemical energy where the plants put it in the soil, and then to the cells where the cells convert it into electrical energy, and that's how we run, as our bodies run on electrical energy. And I hope maybe by next convention we'll have a photograph where we'll be able to photograph someone's hand or finger, or you can do the whole face if you want. And you photograph it, and you can photograph through Kirlian photography the electrical aura that comes off people. You can't really see it, but Kirlian photography can. And so as you're having activities, the electricity, you can see, even sitting there, you have this electric aura around you from all your fingertips everywhere. And it's just radiating out because you're creating all of this electricity. And so if you take organic fulvic acid, like in our Spectramax, you can take a drink of it. We're not going to do it on an empty stomach. We'll take some volunteers, and we'll photograph them before, and then we'll photograph them about 30 minutes. And they'll go from where you can see the flicker to where it looks like they're almost on fire. There is so much activity going on because of all this organic fulvic acid in the cells being converted to electricity, which is generating lots of activity for your cells. So that's the story on Spectramax. And so look at that story. Who could tell that from any other company? What president of any company could tell it? No other company, even if they're chemists, couldn't tell it because they don't have all of this put together. So you have all the antioxidants that cascades all the way down through all of these nutrients and vitamins that are natural, not synthetic, that are in it, and 74 inorganic trace minerals with organic fulvic acid attached to them to deliver 91 to 97% to the cells versus 3%. What a product. So in that category, look how different that is than Fucoidan is. So a company, I'm getting back to the point, a company says they have one product that does all these things, and people are going to say, oh, my allergies are gone, my asthma's gone away, my arthritis has gone away. Well, they said that in the last 3 or 4 MLMs they were in, they had different products, didn't they? Same old story, and they're just they get hyped out and they want to make money. But this is a reality because the studies are behind it. How many studies behind the ingredients that make up a Spectramax? The last I looked, there were about almost 4,000 studies. Now, go back to Tishan, only 25 studies. Go back to mangosteen, maybe 75 or 80, and look at them. But that's all. They're not worth studying. Boy, these are. So then the third one, and the final one on the triangle of life, is eternity. It's come along, and that comes from 4 components that work together, and they work right at the genetic level on what they call the sirtuin genes. Those are genes that when you're from conception and birth, they're the ones that regulate your growth and all the energy and things like that. And they're very active until about 25, and then at that time they get switched off. So once they're switched off, then the growth or regeneration stops. And of course, bones, you're grown, and your bones harden and things like that, and then you start to degenerate because the growth period is over. But it started with scientists that were looking at the French, and they said the French food is very rich and fatty, and they should have higher rates of heart attacks because of their diet than other races, and yet they had lower rates. So they started to look to see why the heart attack rates were lower with the French when it should have been much higher, and they found out it was because they drank red wine. And in red wine was 4 components. And it's not in other kinds of wine, but it's in the 4, and it's called resveratrol. That's the key one. And you have companies that have just gone, Dr. Oz has promoted resveratrol. But and people go out and make a resveratrol product, but they're not very effective because they don't know how to make it right, and it's destroyed in the processing from heat, light, and oxygen. They don't just know how to make it. Make it liquid, you can make it in nitrogen, so it doesn't affect you. You make it in the dark, and you bottle it in a bottle like what you have, so the light can't get through it. Then you got an active product, where the other is pretty well destroyed by the time it gets there. And then we can do some things to make it so it's more absorbable and resistant to stomach acids, which react. So all those things are so important we're doing. But getting back to the fundamentals, there's 4. There's resveratrol, and there's quercetin. That's the second one. And then there's catechins. Those are big names. So you can find them, actually, on our website. And the last one's polyphenols. So those 3 categories of those types of chemicals, and when you talk about chemicals, water's a chemical, oxygen's a chemical, so we're not talking about synthetic chemicals, these are natural ones. But those 4 work on the sirtuin genes. And what it was doing, it was actually, with the French, it was strengthening the heart, and it was keeping cholesterol from really forming, because there are good antioxidants, too, with that. And but it was really strengthening the heart, and they found out it was cardioprotective. And so Harvard University started to do studies on it because it was so extraordinary. And then they came out, and they were on most of the talk shows and everything, and they came out and they said with resveratrol, they were talking about mainly, is that it activates the sirtuin genes. And they said you should be able to live between 125 and 150 years. Now, just when they said that, they had just mapped the human genome, and they knew that our potential to live as a human being was 125 to 150, not 75 like where the average people die. It's almost twice as long. So we're dying of what? Of middle age, right? Not of old age, because you'd be 125 to 150 years old if you did. But now Harvard University, the premier medical research center and university in the world, said with this you should be able to live 125 to 150 years of age. And so it was on, Dr. Oz promoted, all kinds of places where promoted it, and there was kind of a run, and then it went on to the next thing. But the value is still there with this. It's an extraordinary product because it turns the sirtuin genes on that were turned off, and they have what's called an agonistic effect with each other. So there's a certain number of sirtuin genes, 52 of them. There are lots of genes, but these 52 are the ones when turned back on, you get youthful regeneration. And so on a gene site, you'll have perhaps resveratrol attached to it. It'll transfer the signal and its energy, and then it'll be it'll be exhausted, like you let the air out of a balloon, but it's still attached. So another one will come along and knock it off the site. See, like a catechin or a polyphenol or quercetin will knock it off, and then it will transfer its energy, and it does it in a different way. So and then one will come and knock it off, and then one will come and knock it off, and because they're different types of chemistries, when one's exhausted, one with more energy of a different sort, and these 4 will knock it off, and it'll keep regenerating. So Harvard did all of this work, and it was such astounding work that GlaxoSmithKline, the pharmaceutical giant, come in, and they hired the 2 top researchers away from Harvard, gave them fantastic salaries and incentives, and they bought all of the technical information from Harvard for $720 million, almost $750 million, just for the research information that they'd done, because they're going to attempt to use it to justify them making a synthetic drug that will mimic the same, although it'll probably have the side effects, but it'll sell for a tremendous amount of money, probably $300 to $500 a month. And here we have the natural one right now, and the studies coming back. I think GSK is kind of upset because the natural products are way out producing what they've been able to, or performing what they have produced synthetically. And so here we have it, and we took a look at those studies, and I found some other things to make it better, to make it more stable, to process it in liquid, to take it down into smaller sizes, to increase the bioavailability of it, and I put it all together in what I consider a super formula, far beyond that Harvard was testing, and there it is in eternity. So those are the 3 products that make up the triangle of life. And what it does is eternity in studies by Harvard, they said, not eternity, the ingredients that are in eternity increase brain regeneration by 100% in a week, and regeneration through the rest of your body by 200% in a week. That's turning on the sirtuin genes. Now, we can't say that our product does that because they haven't been tested. We've got all the ingredients. We think they're in higher concentrations and more effective than what they had. And so here is the mega formula. So let's look at what it does. It activates the sirtuin genes, the one that grew you from younger to be very strong, and then they quit, and your growth mechanisms and everything goes way down. Now you turn them back on. So then you go to Spectramax, going backwards the other way, and here you have all these antioxidants that neutralize all of the byproducts that of cellular metabolism, because a lot of free radicals are created with that, and you have all the essential trace minerals for the 2,000 biological processes and the organic fulvic acid. And I'll tell you, for time, I could talk for another hour on these things easily with doing it. So you have that. So now you're feeding all of these systems and neutralizing all of the negativity, the antioxidants, the free radicals are being neutralized by them, and you have all of the essential trace minerals, all these other things, and fulvic acid to fuel the body. So you see how different that is from eternity. Also with eternity, the mitochondria, which is the energy engines, it's like a car engine in a car. They're in all in the cells, and in fact, there could be hundreds of them in the cytoplasm of one cell, all creating energy, and they wear out over a period of time. And what the studies at Harvard showed was resveratrol goes in, and mitochondria has their own DNA, and it actually rebuilds the mitochondria, and then it makes these cells create twice as many more mitochondria. So if you feel like over a period of time you've got energy, maybe you've got twice as many mitochondria. Maybe the mitochondria that are wearing out are all now repaired, like you've overhauled an engine, and they're working even better. So look at the energetics and the dynamics, the regeneration from eternity. Look at the free radicals, the neutralization, all the essential trace minerals, and the energy that comes out of Spectramax with it. And then you go to Fucoidan, and here you have Fucoidan, virgin mother's milk. Cell signaler, immune system activator, like support, I'll have to say. It's enormously powerful. Powerful support for inflammation and for the autoimmune system. All of those things that this ingredient supports the maintenance of those. So you can see that's why we call it the triangle of life. Those are the three big issues you need to address. Then everything else that comes in with it, I mean, if you eat a potato or a tomato or some meat or whatever you're eating, then all of those are the nutrients that those systems, the triangle of life, has your body functioning with. Now, do you need a calcium supplement? Okay, then you need something with calcium. We can talk about that another time, because most calcium supplements have more lead in them than calcium. But we've got the answer to that, too. There's a right and wrong way to do it. Everyone else pretty does it the wrong way. We do it the right way. But anyway, the triangle of life, those 3 points, are the things that you really need to build your body back in all its major areas. Now you understand it. Could you put them all in one bottle? I don't think so. There'd be too much interaction with them, and the bottle would be huge with that, or you'd have to buy a whole bunch of them. But this is the right way to do it. And so people that can afford one, what one do they want? Some people say, well, I can't afford them all. Okay, but how much does it cost you if you die? That's pretty expensive, don't you think? But for doing it, it's not that much money. This is a super powerful product. And so if you have all 3 of them, you spend about $150 a month. Boy, it sure beats spending your life's work and your fortune you've earned as you lay there dying for 10 years in some miserable nursing home bed, isn't it? And so that's what you've got with these. So which one would you buy? I don't know. Depends on what your system is. My choice, number 1, would be Fucoidan. And number 2 would be Spectramax. Number 3 would be Eternity with those. But all 3 of them together do so many different things, you really need them for the overall functionality from the toenail to the brain with all the different systems and organs that you have there. And your other nutritional needs can come in and take care of that for you. So that's the triangle of life.